definitely wanted to talk to this man because I got the Steelers on the brain. They're going to be a fascinating team over the next several weeks, certainly in the final throes of the Kevin Colbert administration of shopping for the groceries for Mike Tomlin and the Rooney family, and from the man who's been covering this team forever and a day, now from The Athletic, covering the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ed Bouchette, back on the program. How you doing, Ed?
I'm great, Rich. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Thanks for taking the call. So what do you make of Kevin Colbert talking up Mason Rudolph's 5-4-1 record and how that's as a backup and looking forward to seeing what's next for him? What did you make of that, Ed?
Not a whole lot, Rich. I mean, he's the only quarterback they have under contract right now. And in Kevin's words, if we started the season right now, he'd be our quarterback. Well, he'd be their only quarterback. That doesn't mean he won't be. They have Dwayne Haskins. They're going to tender as a restricted free agent, and then they'll have a couple others. Where those others come from is the big question, whether it's going to be a veteran in free agency, maybe some kind of small trade for a veteran and or a draft pick. Those are the looming questions.
What about the idea of the big swing, the big swing, in case Rodgers does want out of Green Bay, in case there is some smoke in Seattle? Who knows about Kyler Murray's Instagram page? I mean, what about the big swing going out the door for Kevin Colbert? What about that one?
No. I'm pretty emphatic on that. I mean, it doesn't mean it won't happen, but I don't see it. They have more needs than that, Rich. Aaron Rodgers coming in here is not going to make them a Super Bowl contender, and that's what they always want to be. They're not going to be one either way this year. They have too many other things. They don't have an offensive line, not a very good one right now. Their defense, there's a lot of questions involved there. They have some really good top-notch guys, but not enough of them. And even at wide receiver, they're not very good. So they have a lot of holes, and filling it with a great quarterback, an aging quarterback, and I hate to use aging with Aaron, but that's what he is not going to help them.
What about Deshaun Watson? What do you think that possibility there might be?
They're not going to touch him, Rich. They wouldn't touch him if he was a free agent and came free.
Even if he has settled everything?
Well, settling it and whether it was true or not are two different things, right? I just don't see that happening. I mean, we shouldn't even be talking about it because there's no chance.
That's how much of a no chance it would be. Wow. So what did you then make of Tomlin talking about at some point, I forget when it was, I think it might have been his press conference heading out of the season after the loss in Kansas City, about mobility at quarterback and the value of that. What about that?
Different kinds of mobilities, Rich. There's Lamar Jackson mobility, and there is Ben Roethlisberger mobility. You wouldn't call Ben a running quarterback, but he certainly could move around in his prime, take off once in a while when necessary, but he was more able to elude pass rushers, and I think that's more what Mike Tomlin meant, is something along those lines rather than just getting this quarterback who's going to run for 800 yards for you every year.
Ed Bouchette of The Athletic Pittsburgh here on the Rich Eisen Show. What about the draft? What are you hearing about a quarterback in the draft? The kid from Liberty appears every now and then on a mock draft for the Steelers to take. Do you think that's entirely possible, Ed Bouchette?
I would say anything's possible, but I don't see them drafting that guy in the first round. I think if Kenny Pickett were available to them, they draft at number 20, that might be a case. But other than that, I don't see them going in the first round for a quarterback. And I think they'll either muddle along this year with Mason Rudolph and or Haskins and or someone else as a veteran, and then getting a quarterback next year, or I don't think they're going to get Kenny Pickett. That's the guy I think they would want.
So there's no sense at all of trying to make a big splash, a flashy play at quarterback. I know that is against type, if you will, but after having Roethlisberger for as long as they had him, and just going and because this division, Ed, I don't need to remind you, but I'll just throw it out. I mean, there's Lamar twice a year, and Burrow. You see what Burrow has turned into. I mean, and depending on how Baker shakes out in his 5th year in Cleveland, the Steelers could easily be dead last on the quarterback race within this division in 2022. And I don't know how that would sit with Steeler fans. You obviously would know better. So I'll just throw that out at you without a question for a response.
Yeah, but one, like I said, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to change things. I mean, they may have a great quarterback, but it's not going to change their standing in the division, I don't think. Plus, what do you have to give up to get him? He's not a free agent. And they do have a lot of more salary cap room than they're used to, but they need to use that in their offensive line, their defensive line, their inside linebackers, their secondary, their wide receivers. It's just too much. I just don't see it, Rich.
Ed Bouchette, The Athletic Pittsburgh, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Brian Flores was on Real Sports last night and basically said he called up Tomlin for advice and wound up getting a job offer within 24 hours. So where do you think that came from, Ed?
Right where it came from. I mean, he probably did ask him, I assume he did ask him for, that kind of help and assistance, and and Mike said, hey, we need a linebackers coach, and how about coming here? And they did a deal, and he's got the title of senior assistant defensive coach, whatever that means also. But it's a good landing spot, I think, for him. I think other than maybe getting a head coaching job, it didn't seem that was going to happen, or maybe a defensive coordinator's job somewhere. I didn't see any offers there, so it's a good spot for him. They have a good, Terrell Austin is their coordinator. He's certainly experienced and has been a coordinator in the league and head coaching candidate, and it's a good place. I mean, he can polish up some things and try again maybe next year to get a head coaching job.
And then obviously, with Art Rooney wanting to continue the legacy of his dad with the Rooney Rule, bringing on Brian Flores amidst this lawsuit and being the owner to show that he will not be blackballed entirely out of the league because of it. How much of that played into green-lighting whatever Tomlin had in his mind for Flores?
Rich, knowing Art and knowing them, I would think nothing. I mean, I think it happened the way Mike said it happened, and I don't know that anybody went beyond that and into those kinds of thoughts. And I know those are things everybody's thinking about. Right. Hey, the Steelers, bravo for them, but I think they saw an opportunity to get a good coach, and it's been well accepted here.
Well, what about? I mean, this can't just be viewed in a vacuum, though, Ed. I mean, my gosh, this is another a coach being brought on who's accusing another member of the NFL of all forms of violations of sportsmanship, gamesmanship, and now an NDA being asked to be signed on top of it. One member hiring that coach would definitely know that he's putting himself into, at the very least, an awkward position at the next owners meeting, right? Like that never got crossed the mind, you don't think, Ed?
Rich, I think Art Rooney is secure enough in his own way that he didn't have to care about any of that stuff, really. I know his dad wouldn't have. And Art's in his 60s and has been the team president for enough time here, and I really don't think he thought twice of that. And it happened rather quickly, so I don't think there was a lot of thought, how is this going to affect us politically and this, that, and the other thing. I just think they said he's a good coach. Let's go.
So what is the game plan, do you think, here for the next couple of years, based on what you've been telling me, Ed, is that they're not going to take a big swing at quarterback because either it's not in their DNA, or it doesn't make sense with the roster as it currently stands to go ahead and do something like that. And so are they rebuilding? Is this a rebuilding football team in your estimation right now?
They don't like that word.
No, I know. But Ed, I got to be honest with you. For a fan base that hears Mason Rudolph might be their guy after all, everything said and done, and the Bengals just made the Super Bowl, and a big swing isn't either in the offing because there are no draft choices for it or the roster isn't ready for it. And other teams are going to be really aggressive, like Washington, like maybe Tampa, and the Steelers would not be on that front, especially since, let me just finish my windup, the Ravens' long-standing general manager and Ozzie Newsome left them the gift of Lamar Jackson going out the door. What else would you call it other than rebuilding?
Except Ozzie came back. He's still there. Again, Rich, I don't see them taking the big swing. I could see them taking a check swing, okay, if you will.
Who's that? Like Jimmy G? Like Jimmy G? Like that's it? That's the check swing? Would that be it?
No, I'm talking Minshew, some of those free agent guys who are around, something like that to bring in, not to anoint as their starter, but to compete.
Right.
I can very much see that. But they're not going to go for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. I just don't see it. I mean, I keep telling people I just saw the odds the other day. Steelers are third in line. Odds to get Aaron Rodgers, 550 to, 550, which means you'd have to bet 100 to win 550. I'd tell them to go the other way. Bet the 550 to win 100 because it ain't going to happen.
You're on that don't pass line? You're on the don't pass line on that one, Ed?
You got it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
What about Jameis? What about him as an idea? What do you think about him?
Well, he's a free agent, so
right.
I could see that. I mean, they're not going to give up a lot of capital bringing a big-name quarterback. But if Jameis, and depending on the deal and everything else, I mean, maybe there's some incentives they could add to that, but Jameis might also be other teams might be competing for him too. But I could definitely see someone like that coming in.
Ed Bouchette, thanks for the time. I'd love to reconnect with you post combine leading up to the draft to see what's going on with the Steelers. Thanks for the call.
Anytime.
Appreciate that. That's Ed Bouchette. Read him in The Athletic. I do. You should as well. Right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.